Xbox as a brand is one that has been evolving for the past several years, since towards the midpoint of the Xbox One. In 2017, Xbox Game Pass was launched, and with it began the next phase of the Xbox brand. A transition from a console ecosystem to a service that is intended to be played anywhere on any device. We have seen steps made towards this with the launch of Project xCloud, and now Xbox exclusive titles reportedly making their way to rival platforms. The Xbox console platform has not gone away and may not go away for a while, but Microsoft is taking steps that indicate an eventual move towards being service-based as opposed to platform-based in the future. Titles and IP that are owned by Microsoft have shown up on rival platforms in recent years, with one of the biggest examples being the Ori collection that was brought to Nintendo Switch. 2 games that were initially Xbox One exclusive now being made available to play on the go in a native fashion on one card. There was also Banjo Kazooie showing up as DLC fighter in Smash, and the original Banjo Kazooie making its way to Nintendo Switch Online, as well as a version of GoldenEye also coming to Nintendo Switch Online in 2023. Microsoft has always been more than willing to bring their older titles to other platforms and give them exposure to audiences new and old. With Microsoft's purchase of the publishers Bethesda in 2020 and Activision Blizzard in 2022, with the former settling in 2021 and the latter in 2023, Microsoft now has a bigger presence in gaming than just Xbox, with many titles from Bethesda and Activision being on rival platforms like PlayStation 4, 5, and Nintendo Switch. With those at Bethesda being unhappy that they were no longer allowed to publish titles multi-platform, while Activision is allowed to continue releasing titles on rival platforms, with this being conveyed through publicly available emails from Pete Hines. On the Nate the Hate podcast, he broke the news that an Xbox exclusive title would be making its way to rival platforms, with this news later being corroborated by the Australian Classification Bureau. They may hit the news every few years for refusing classification to a game for absurd reasons, but they are a great source of leaks, with the Australian Classification Bureau recently having rated Hi-Fi Rush for PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, with rumours making the rounds that Sea of Thieves will also be making the jump to multi-platform. It has long been the status quo that a console manufacturer will publish games exclusively for their console and only their console. There are rare instances where a title that is made by a first-party studio will appear on a rival platform, like what occurred with Sony San Diego, the developer of MLB The Show. The MLB threatened to pull the license if MLB The Show didn't make its way to multiple platforms. Console exclusives are an attempt to sweeten the deal with consumers and provide a reason for why you need to buy a specific machine. For instance, I myself generally buy an Xbox in anticipation of Halo. I buy a new Nintendo console for Zelda, Mario, and Fire Emblem. And then I buy a PlayStation not for the IP, but the games that are made by the first-party studios, like Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, and Sony Santa Monica. We are witnessing an interesting shift, where Microsoft are not necessarily using the exclusive software to push consumers to purchase an Xbox console. While that incentive does remain, they are more so utilizing software to push their subscription service, one that can be played anywhere on most devices. I've made it clear in many other videos embodying the meme, "Old man yells at clouds," that I don't believe that dropping a $200+ million AAA game on a subscription service is profitable if it is done as a day-and-date release, especially when we've seen subscription services in other mediums with more subscribers struggle to turn a profit while dropping productions that are just as expensive as a AAA game. Smaller scale A and AA titles could in theory work, as they are less expensive to produce. Starfield dropped on Xbox Game Pass in September 2023 at launch. I can see a scenario where, say a few years after launch, when the game has gained all the subscribers for Game Pass that it can, that Starfield makes its way to the next-gen Nintendo console and the PS5, allowing the title to live a second life and potentially find even more commercial and critical success than it has currently accrued. I do believe that Microsoft will be bringing many titles that are Xbox exclusive to multiple platforms going forward. Not necessarily new titles, but old ones that could be exposed to a new audience. This could be done with the intent of eventually having a PlayStation native version of Game Pass. I wholeheartedly believe that Sony will try and keep Game Pass off of PlayStation for as long as they can, with the intention being to maintain the status quo and how people consume games on PlayStation. While subscription services are available on PlayStation, they generally forego releasing games on day one, like Game Pass. Microsoft may be more concerned with getting software into the hands of people as opposed to locking it off onto one platform. There was a recent interview where their new strategy for gaming at Microsoft was first alluded to, with Xbox CFO Tim Stuart stating, "It's a bit of a change of strategy, not announcing anything broadly here, but our mission is to bring our first-party experiences and our subscription services to every screen that can play games." Many interpreted this at the time to mean that Xbox Game Pass would be coming to PlayStation, but now knowing that Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves may be making their way to PlayStation, this comment makes a lot more sense. When you own the biggest games in the world, like Call of Duty, why wouldn't you continue to bring this to PlayStation consoles and charge full price, while offering it on your subscription with a much lower barrier to entry? Over time, essentially wearing down the users on the rival platform as they get tired of spending full price for the game every year, when they could spend less money and get access to more on your platform. It could also act as a way to advertise and sway people towards Game Pass for future titles. Bringing Hi-Fi Rush to a larger console user base on PlayStation means that when you announce a sequel, and it is exclusive to Xbox and PC for a period of time, that it is more likely that those who played and enjoyed it on PlayStation will come to the Xbox ecosystem to enjoy a future entry. There is currently a lawsuit that has been lodged against SIE in the UK. The lawsuit pertains to the PlayStation Store, with it being argued that Sony has abused its power as the dominant force in the gaming industry through its 30% cut when users purchase a game. The lawsuit alleges that the 30% rip led to higher prices than what would have occurred at a lower percentage, with a huge argument of this lawsuit being that no rival storefronts are allowed on PlayStation consoles. This could more than likely just be thrown out and never go to trial, as the idea of rival storefronts on a console is absurd, especially as it has never happened before in the console space. How does this lawsuit factor into Xbox exclusive games coming to PlayStation? The lawsuit alleges that PlayStation has a monopoly in their ecosystem. If Microsoft were to try and bring Xbox Game Pass to PlayStation and be denied, no! I will not be denied! Wouldn't it strengthen the argument of this lawsuit? Because Sony would be denying a rival company the ability to compete, especially when there are many other subscription services readily available on PlayStation? Essentially, I think this lawsuit could lead not just to the Microsoft Store coming to PlayStation, but also Xbox Game Pass, if it is successful. Many other ecosystems have had legal entities go after them to allow multiple storefronts, with Apple being a big one. It would be very much like a PC, where there are multiple storefronts like Steam and Epic Games Store. The opening of a console ecosystem to allow multiple storefronts would completely change the status quo as it is currently, and how publishers have competed in the console space since the Xbox 360, where digital storefronts became commonplace. While Phil Spencer has said recently in an interview with Windows Central that there are no plans to bring Xbox Game Pass to PlayStation or Nintendo, this is conjecture on my part and my own opinion, but I believe this can always change given the right circumstances. Why wouldn't you want to get your service in front of as many eyes as possible? Bringing it to these platforms would enable that, especially if the platforms are forced to open up to multiple storefronts. In conclusion, Microsoft's approach to gaming and the Xbox brand is evolving. They are changing and adapting to a future that is reliant on subscription services and cloud gaming, positioning themselves not so much as a console platform but a service. A future where they may go third party, offering games for full price on rival platforms. Not necessarily at launch, but a few years after games have launched day and date on Game Pass, having already brought in subscribers over its lifetime on the service, acting as a way for titles launched exclusively on Xbox Game Pass to generate more revenue and live a second life, getting the games in front of more eyeballs. This is a future that at the end of the day is good for Xbox fans, because it means that there are more people who can discuss what is great about the titles that Xbox offer.